What you're about to hear, depending on who you ask, is either the future of the internet or one of the most elaborate financial illusions ever created. To some people, cryptocurrencies represent a revolution, a world where money moves freely across borders, a system without banks, without governments, without gatekeepers. To others, it's something much simpler. A giant global casino with very convincing marketing. This story begins with a promise that technology could reinvent money, a promise that ordinary people could finally compete with powerful financial institutions. And perhaps the most powerful promise of all, the idea that anyone could get rich. All they had to do was get in early. The year was 2008. Banks were collapsing. Financial institutions were failing. The global economy was spiraling into the worst crisis since the Great Depression. People were angry. People were losing their homes. And perhaps most importantly, people were losing trust in the financial system itself. In the middle of this chaos, an anonymous person or group published a small document online. 9 pages. That's all it was. But inside those 9 pages was an idea that would eventually grow into a $1 trillion industry. The document described a new form of money. Digital, decentralized, global, and it was called Bitcoin. The creator used a pseudonym, Satoshi Nakamoto. No one knows who they are. Some believe it's a single programmer. Others believe it's a group of developers. Some even believe it's a government experiment. The truth is, nobody really knows. At first, Bitcoin was almost worthless. It wasn't traded on exchanges. It wasn't covered in the news. Most people had never even heard of it. In fact, the first real purchase using Bitcoin was 2 pizzas, 10,000 Bitcoins. Today, those pizzas would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. In its early years, Bitcoin attracted a small but passionate community: programmers, cryptographers, libertarians, tech idealists, people who believed governments had too much control over money. To them, Bitcoin wasn't just a currency, it was a movement. But something interesting began to happen. The more people talked about Bitcoin, the more people started buying it. And the more people bought it, the higher the price went. Suddenly, Bitcoin wasn't just money anymore. It was an investment. Stories started appearing everywhere, early adopters becoming millionaires, teenagers turning small investments into life-changing fortunes, investors predicting Bitcoin would replace the global financial system, and influencers explaining why you were still early. Soon, Bitcoin wasn't alone. Developers began creating new cryptocurrencies, hundreds of them, then thousands, each promising something revolutionary. Faster payments, decentralized finance, a new internet, or sometimes just a coin with a dog on it. Then came another innovation: Ethereum. Unlike Bitcoin, Ethereum allowed developers to build applications directly on its blockchain. This meant people could create digital assets, tokens, and entire financial systems without traditional institutions. The possibilities suddenly seemed endless. One of those possibilities became known as NFTs, non-fungible tokens. In theory, NFTs allowed people to prove ownership of digital items using blockchain technology. Images, music, videos, digital collectibles. In practice, people began spending enormous amounts of money on internet images. A pixelated avatar, a cartoon monkey, a digital meme. Millions of dollars. Celebrities quickly joined the trend. Actors, athletes, musicians, influencers. Everyone seemed to be buying NFTs, posting them online, showing them off as digital status symbols. It wasn't just art anymore. It was identity. It was community. It was investment. But critics began asking uncomfortable questions. Where was the value actually coming from? Because if people were buying these assets hoping to sell them later, then someone else had to buy them next.
And usually at a higher price.
At the same time, venture capital firms were pouring billions of dollars into the crypto industry. Startups launched new tokens, new platforms, new games, new financial systems. The ecosystem was expanding at incredible speed. One example became especially famous, a blockchain game called Axie Infinity. Players could buy digital creatures, battle with them, and earn cryptocurrency. For a moment, some players were earning real income. Entire communities formed around the game. People in developing countries began playing for hours every day, until the system began collapsing. Token prices fell, user numbers dropped, the in-game currency lost most of its value, and many players who joined late lost money. Situations like this raised an important question. Is crypto a technological revolution or simply a speculative bubble? Because history shows something interesting. Every major technological breakthrough attracts speculation. Railroads did. The internet did. Even electricity did. But speculation alone doesn't determine whether a technology succeeds. What matters is what remains after the hype disappears. The tools people actually use. The systems that solve real problems. The innovations that survive. And that's where the crypto debate becomes complicated. Because after more than a decade, the industry is still searching for its defining use case. Trading and speculation work extremely well. But beyond that, the answers become less clear. Supporters still believe blockchain technology will transform industries. Finance, gaming, identity systems, digital ownership. They argue the technology is still young, that innovation takes time. Critics disagree. They argue that many crypto projects rely more on hype than real utility, that speculation drives most of the market, and that many investors are simply hoping someone else will buy their assets later. So where does that leave us? Somewhere between revolution and speculation. Cryptocurrency may reshape parts of the financial world, or it may become a historical lesson about hype and technology. The truth is, we don't know yet. But one thing is certain. The story of crypto is still being written, and the final chapter hasn't happened yet.